One of the great traditions at the Haas School is choosing the commencement speaker. Each year, we call upon an alum of uncommon distinction to address the graduating class, someone who embodies a commitment to excellence and a distinguished record of achievement, someone who personifies our defining leadership principles. I'm honored today to introduce your 2022 commencement speaker, Aaron McDaniel. Aaron is an entrepreneur, a corporate leader, a speaker, and an author. He's also a graduate of your program, class of 2004. At the age of 27, Aaron was one of the youngest to serve as regional vice president at AT&T. An alumnus of AT&T's flagship leadership development program, Aaron was also a Diamond Club Award winner in the top 1% of sales managers worldwide. Aaron is also a successful serial entrepreneur. 3 of his companies have been acquired. He has brought his startup experience back into the Haas classroom and has remained actively engaged with your program, as we hope you will. Aaron is a founding partner at Grow Scale, a commercial real estate private equity firm, and the co-founder of 10X Innovation Lab, a global accelerator and innovation consulting firm. He's also the vice chair of the board of the nonprofit Project Giving Kids. Aaron is also the author of 3 books. 2 are The Young Professional's Guide to the Working World and The Young Professional's Guide to Managing. His new book, Global Class, out this fall, explores how the world's fastest growing companies expand globally. He's been written about in Forbes, Bloomberg, US News and World Report, and is a sought-after speaker. I cannot think of a better person to address our wonderful graduates today. Please join me in welcoming Aaron McDaniel.
Thank you, Dean Harrison. Good morning. Welcome, friends and loved ones, and especially you, 2022 Haas graduates. It is such a tremendous honor to be given the chance to share this momentous occasion with you. And I thought I'd start my speech today with a little bit of a story. From a time long ago, the year was 2004. It was a time when the restaurant Mezzo was called Intermezzo before the original building it was in burned down. Blazing fast 1.5 megabit internet allowed Cal students to download an endless amount of music for free using a magical software called Kazaa after the mean US government shut down its predecessor, Napster. The best late night snack at the Durant Center food court was Dollar Noodle from Yokohama Station. Imagine a meal for $1. The coolest device that everyone wanted was one of these, a Motorola Razr. Parents, you remember how cool these things were, right? YouTube was a few months from being invented, and you graduates were still in preschool. That, for most of you. That year, I had the honor of addressing my fellow Cal graduates as the university-wide commencement speaker. And I thought it would be interesting in preparing for today to go back and watch that video of my speech and share my perspectives on how life changed between now and then. In rewatching that video, here's what I noticed. Man, I looked young and full of energy. There was an underlying optimism and hopefulness, a sense of pride and accomplishment, and a deep appreciation for Cal and Haas and the experience that I had just had. Here are a couple of things that I'd said back then. While today is a celebration for the graduates, it's really so much more. It's a celebration of everything and everyone who has made us into the people we are today. Our teachers who taught us to question the world and find our own answers. Our friends who supported us all along the way. Our mentors who got us to believe in ourselves. And most importantly, our families who sacrificed so that we may have success. Today is dedicated to you. I definitely still agree with that. At the end of my speech, I shared a rather lengthy poem I wrote called College is a State of Mind, with one of the lines being, but college will stay with us long after we've passed on the baton. Looking back, I have so many fond memories of my time at Haas, both inside the classroom and through extracurricular activities. So as you're sitting here today, I invite you to look back on your fondest Cal and Haas memories. Now, one moment that stuck out for me in particular was being crowned the very first Mr. Business as part of the pageant charity event put on by the Asian Business Association. My award at the time was an iPod, which was a big deal. Now, more from class projects and student clubs than pageants, there are so many things I learned from Haas that helped me avoid mistakes early in my career, although there are still definitely some lessons I had to learn the hard way. Like 3 months into my first job after graduating, when I had my first performance review. Now, at the time, I was working at AT&T as part of its leadership development program, where I'd been put in charge of 17 customer service reps who'd been at the company longer than I'd been alive. Now, I remember expecting fireworks. I thought my boss was gonna invite me in, tell me I was doing a great job, and give me a raise and a special bonus, and tell me I was on the fast track to promotion. Instead, shortly after I sat down, she said, Aaron, you seem like a smart person, but I'm not even sure you really understand how to do your job. She continued, I haven't really received much feedback or communication from you, so I'm really unsure of your performance. Ouch. I was so used to positive reinforcement that this little dose of reality stung. But it was also a very illuminating moment because I actually had intentionally not bothered my boss, instead asking an endless amount of questions to all of my peers. See, I hadn't realized the counterintuitive concept of managing your boss and needing to understand how she liked to communicate and adapting my style as to help her, support her in making the organization a success and reaching our goals. Another lesson that I had to learn early in my career came after attending a wedding of 2 coworkers up in wine country. We all had a great time, and the Monday after, one of the vice presidents in attendance came up to me in the office, and he said, Aaron, I am so glad you were at that wedding, because if you weren't there, then I would have been the drunkest one there. So, double ouch. Let's just say that I had to learn that just because I was coworkers outside of work didn't mean what happened wouldn't make its way back to the office. So, thinking back on that young college graduate I was during my first speech versus who I am now, a few pieces of advice rose to the surface, things that I wish the young college graduate me knew back then to make the years of life and work to follow more successful. So I thought about sharing everything from the warm and fuzzy, like to tell others when you're proud of them and to allow yourself to be proud of you, to the more practical, like reminding myself to buy Bitcoin when it was only worth a couple dollars. But ultimately, 3 pieces of advice rose to the surface as catalysts behind the success I experienced and have seen in others who are reaching the apex of their fields. Now, each of these refer to a shift in mindset because, as this fortune cookie fortune that I got from Dumpling Express 2 weeks ago, when I was picking up my regalia for today, says, all personal breakthroughs begin with a change in beliefs. Number 1, iterate. Now, this first one ties closely to what I teach in my entrepreneurship classes, and I would be remiss not to mention it. To iterate is to be flexible and adapt when things don't go as planned, coming up with new options, and never quitting until you reach your end goal. Now, while this is pretty straightforward, it can be pretty challenging because from this point on, you won't have the structure that you're used to. You see, school has made us accustomed to a set path with a clear plan. But let me tell you that from here on out, that set path doesn't exist. It's no longer a multiple choice question, it's an essay question. And there's an unlimited number of answers. You get to write your own story. At this point, you're used to these 4-year cycles. So in high school, the first 3 years, you were studying, taking your required classes. And then that 4th year, you were looking ahead to college, taking standardized tests and applying to schools. Then you came here to Berkeley, another 4-year cycle. The first 3 years, taking all of your required classes. That 4th year, looking ahead, writing your resume, applying to and interviewing for different jobs. Well, now that you're graduating, the next step isn't another 4-year cycle. It's a 40-year cycle, which can be kind of hard to navigate. Even those who are going into one of the ABC professions, accounting, banking, consulting, with plans to go work for 2-3 years and go back and get your MBA, eventually this situation is on the horizon for you guys. So when you feel uncertain about your career, being iterative helps you create structure, a system that helps you constantly test new strategies, learn, and act on what you've learned. So being iterative, also referred to in business speak as being agile, recognizes that a career is an accumulation of experiences instead of a linear path. So there's no single right way to do things. And in tough moments, realize that you can always adapt. So keep the same ultimate goals and core values, but take a flexible path to get there. So there are two ways to implement this iterative mindset in your careers and lives. The first is to be open to opportunity. So this can be tough if you're too rigid in the path that you've set for yourself. See, if you cling too tightly to a set plan, you close yourself off from opportunity and set yourself up for disappointment when life, as it invariably does, ends up working out different than we thought it would. So when you're open to opportunity, you aren't just limited to the ideas you can think of, but open to experiences beyond your wildest dreams. Now, being open to opportunity has been a driver in my entrepreneurial career, and if you looked at the wide assortment of companies I've started, you'd see a pattern of being open to opportunity instead of some grand structured plan. So custom wedding invitations, portable beer pong tables, a taxi app that came out around the same time as Uber, a crowdfunding platform, a fintech app, a global innovation consultancy, and a real estate private equity firm. Most came from opportunities I didn't explicitly seek out. And while some succeeded and some failed, each of these seemingly different experiences was an iteration on a nonlinear path that have given me the skills and perspectives that help me in the ventures that I'm working on today. Now, inherently linked to being open to opportunity is to take action when opportunity presents itself. Step outside of your comfort zones. So I definitely did during the swimsuit competition of the Mr. Business pageant. I did when I had to manage a team that had been at the company longer than I'd been alive at AT&T, and I definitely stepped out of my comfort zone when I was called a criminal on national television when I was pitching one of my businesses on ABC's Shark Tank. The other key to effectively iterating is to be comfortable with failure. Failure is table stakes. Things often did not go as I wanted them to, and I made many mistakes along the way. But like I teach my class, your first plan likely won't be right, and that's okay. Treat it as a minimum viable product, an MVP, and when things don't go as expected, pivot and come up with a new path. Now, my advice for dealing with the failure that will invariably occur is encapsulated in two sayings that I have my young daughters recite when challenges arise. So when they get frustrated because what they're doing isn't working, whether that be attempting to assemble a puzzle or struggling to tie their shoelaces, I have them say, there's always a way. There is always a path on the other side of failure. And the other saying, when they fall off their bike or skin their knee, I have them dry their tears and say, I'm strong, I'm brave, I get up when I fall down. Now, getting over how silly it may feel, saying these affirmations to yourself in tough times will help you focus on what's next instead of dwelling on the failure that just occurred. Iterate by being open to opportunities outside your comfort zone and persevere amidst failure. My next piece of advice is to be an enabler. So from my experience, the two best ways to learn are one, by doing it, and two, by teaching others how to do it. And teaching in particular is a great way to learn, because as you teach, you're reminded of key insights, helping you practice what you preach. Plus, from a practical perspective, you don't want to look like an idiot in front of the people you're teaching, so you tend to make sure you put in the work so that you understand the topic. Teaching enables others, and at its core, the driver behind teaching is to enable others, helping them accomplish more. And while the traditional image of a teacher is someone standing at the front of a classroom, you can teach and help others in different ways, many of them behind the scenes. Both now and in the future, there are many skills and lessons you learn that you can teach others, enabling them. Our experiences are built on top of one another's, and one of the hidden joys of life is to see those who we have helped succeed. But teaching is only one of many ways to enable others. As I'm sure you're aware, there is a whole team here at Haas, and in particular in the undergraduate office, who enable our school to be one of the top programs in the country and who helped enable each of you during your time here. And while all of them recognize recognition and applause, I'd like to recognize three of them who have enabled literally thousands of Haas students over the years, a combined 72 years. So Barbara Felkins, Sojourner Blair, Dresden John, where are you at? All right, backstage. We're clapping for you three. each of them retiring this year. More practically, I've learned from my career that people want enablers on their team and those who help others reach their goals. In the realm of business, no matter what your job function, you always have a customer. And even if you don't interact with your company's end clients, you have an internal customer to serve. So enabling your customer will lead to success no matter what metrics you're measured by. Think about how to make others successful and focus on helping your team achieve its goals. People are watching, even when you think they aren't. I've heard many successful people talk about how more often than not, they don't go search opportunity. Opportunity comes to them. And when you're open to opportunity, as I suggested in my first piece of advice, exciting things can happen. So enable others to reach their goals, and opportunities will come to help you reach yours. My third piece of advice is to focus on asking the right questions instead of searching for the right answers. So much of your coursework has been centered on finding the right answers, the solution to a problem set, the strategy in a case study, the right internships to apply for. But on the road that lies ahead, there is often no right answer. There are just choices among options. And that's why it's far better to focus on asking the right questions. Focusing on finding answers creates frustration, anxiety, and doubt. Asking yourself the right questions creates options and opportunities. So as you go through your career journey, a question you may find yourself asking is, what is my job? The default answer being something that resembles a job description. But the more important question that's less often asked is, why am I here? What can you uniquely contribute? What can you do? What impact can you have that is above and beyond your job description? And realize the answer doesn't have to be some elaborate strategy that increases company earnings by 50 cents a share. My first job out of college, the call center that I was a manager in, had to move offices 40 miles away. And let's just say that the staff was not very happy about this change. So to help address the frustrations, I teamed up with a peer of mine and we created the Morale Committee, bringing together a group of reps to create programs to celebrate and recognize people in the office during a time of low morale. I was pretty proud of the fact that this Morale Committee continued on for a few years after I left the position, long after that office relocation was complete. Don't ask yourself, how can I advance my career? Instead, ask, how can I help others succeed? Remember that when you support others, people notice and opportunities eventually follow. And don't ask yourself, did I succeed? Comparing yourself to some measure valued by society. Instead, ask, what can I learn from these experiences? Now, sometimes this can be hard, especially when failure is involved, but asking yourself this sets you up to learn from your experiences. So ask yourself the right questions. It makes finding the answers easier. Now, there's one more piece of advice, one thought that I'd like to leave you with, a thought that came to me about a decade ago at a very unexpected time and place. I was actually on a date, and we had just finished our entrees at a restaurant and were browsing the dessert menus. And after a minute or two, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, said, I'm having trouble deciding which dessert to get. I could either go with the panna cotta or the tiramisu. They both look pretty good. And without thinking, I kind of jokingly said, get both. We don't live in an either or world, we live in an and world. And the benefits of getting seconds on dessert aside, the thought immediately struck me and really true and applicable to many aspects of life. And the saying has stuck with me and over the years has become a core part of my mindset. And there have been many times when I faced a tough situation where I seemingly had to choose between mutually exclusive options where I used that mindset. And this thought is particularly important in the world that we live in today. At every turn, people are attempting to classify things as good or bad, right or wrong, with very little gray area in between, further amplified by the echo chambers that we spend time in. In many cases, you don't have to choose one or the other. There's a way to have or be both. And it doesn't have to be nature or nurture, Coke or Pepsi. Living in an and world is also about diversity and the value of being open to those with different viewpoints and experiences. There is often an and instead of an or. Failing and succeeding, career and family, profiting and positively impacting society. Remember, we don't live in an either or world, we live in an and world. Now, when I listened to that first commencement speech I gave almost half my life ago, some of the advice that I've shared today is embedded within. But back then, I only understood things at a surface level. I lacked experience. Back then, it was pretty simple, and then life got pretty complex. So when you don't fully understand what you're getting into, sometimes things seem simple. And then when you get into it, they become a whole lot more complicated. But then, somewhere down the line, finally, years or decades later, after you've come to understand things better through lived experience, it gets simple again. So when you're in the middle and mired by confusion and complexity, don't get frustrated. It's all part of the process. And as I shared previously, at the end of my first commencement speech all those years ago, I had recited a poem that I had written. So in the spirit of continuity, I have a new poem to share with you today. But in the spirit of simplicity, and because you've had to listen to me long enough, instead of sharing a long multi-verse composition, the poem I wrote for this occasion is a haiku. Enable others. Iterate, ask self questions. Live in an and world. It has been a tremendous honor to speak with you today. Congratulations, 2022 Haas graduates. I wish each of you luck in building an and world. Thank you.